welcome to Heirs and Spares, your go-to for insight and opinion on two of the most talked about royal couples from both sides of the Atlantic. I'm Kinsey Schofield, and I'll be bringing you updates on Prince Harry and Meghan Markle right here in California.
And over in the UK, where I think our heat wave is finally going to come to an end. I've been sweltering in my garden. Everything looks like a desert. But I do have some news about the Prince and Princess of Wales from the United Kingdom.
I love it. I mean, all of the headlines over the weekend were these gorgeous pictures of the Wales family. They were seen traveling together in their cars as they departed Balmoral, their usual summer retreat. It was on Sunday where Prince William, Catherine, the Princess of Wales, and their three gorgeous babies, Prince George, Princess Charlotte, and Prince Louis, were photographed on their way to church service. The family was accompanied by King Charles and Queen Camilla, and of course, Princess Anne. They arrived in separate vehicles, but attending Sunday church service is a long-standing tradition for the royal family. And I've heard that after Catherine's cancer, she's become more spiritual. Are you hearing that on your side of the pond?
Well, I think probably it concentrates the mind, doesn't it? If you get a life-threatening condition, you are likely to probably think you're assessing your own mortality and what that means, and whatever direction that takes. And so maybe in her, for her, it may have been some form of comfort to ease her through her treatment, whatever it was. It's not unusual. So to hear that, you'd be going, well, that's not a surprise, because I'm sure it's a, a discussion point for many, that people then reassess their own mortality. So I wouldn't say that's a total surprise. To see them going to church it's the nearest thing to a semi-public appearance. And bearing in mind this is them on their holidays, we tend to see the King will turn up at the Braemar Games, as the late Queen used to, or some Highland Games, to see people, as they say, tossing the caber, or and doing other such things. A bit of an eye roll from you, but if you've seen it, it's
Tossing the caber. I was like, oh.
have you seen it? Have you seen it? Do you know
I
what I'm
think
talking
I
about?
saw the cute guy from Outlander cover it. Sam, he plays Jamie in the show Outlander. He did a show where they toured Scotland. It's like where they take a big log and toss it, right? Is that
Oh, basically, big log and see how far, and then you've got to make it fall over. So, and Highland Games, no, they're a great Scottish tradition. I always used to go to the Oban Highland Games in August, when I spent my summers up in Oban. So to see the royal family going to church on a Sunday, it's a way of, obviously we haven't got pictures of Kate outside the car, and then everyone's suddenly getting excited about the change of hair color, people saying the sun's dyed it. I mean, I haven't, look, I am so out of my comfort zone as to whether she's dyed her hair, whether her hair has been bleached because she's been in the sun, sweltering in Greece or wherever they've been for their summer holiday. And in this country, where we seem to have had temperatures in the high 70s and 80s throughout, and she may have been out in the garden. I have no idea. You may be better qualified to know whether that she has gone to visit somebody, but let's be honest, it's through a window, so, and maybe a bit of sun may just have lightened the colour. That's as far as I'm going to go with that one. But actually, the more serious point, if your initial question about the spirituality, I think that is something that a lot of cancer sufferers, or anyone going through serious illness, does reassess where they are in the grand scheme of things, and maybe that their faith starts to reveal itself in whichever direction they want to go. In her case, presumably, it is the Christian faith that she alluding to going to church, bearing in mind her father is a very strong believer as well, and so father-in-law, I should say. So I have to say, no surprise there.
Yeah, I mean, I always am interested in this story or this direction that the Prince and Princess of Wales are hopefully heading, because I've always been a little brokenhearted over the idea that Prince William is not necessarily as invested as his father is, as his mother was. His mother was incredibly spiritually curious. And, as the head of the church, you want him to be a faithful person.
Well, this is the big dilemma, let's be honest, amongst his generation. I'm putting myself slightly older. Um, Church attendance is plummet in this country. The role of the Anglican Church. We haven't got an Archbishop of Canterbury at the moment, so we're a sort of which the king is head of the church. So shows we're a, that's the problem. The Christian faith in this country. No, no, we're supposed to be a royal podcast. I'm not going to discuss the merits of the state of the Anglican Church because I'm deeply unqualified. But what I would say, it behoves when he becomes king, that is part of his duty, is to be the head of the Anglican Church and the head of the Church of Scotland. I mean, I had the chance to go around St Giles Cathedral the other day when I was in Edinburgh, and it's the most fantastic venue, which you would have seen during the coronation. I don't know whether you've been to Edinburgh, but the symbolism of the monarchy, it is part of their role within this country to be ahead of the faith. And that's why there are very different services. The Church of Scotland, the Anglican Church, there are these, that's why he's head of two denominations. But for William, I'm sure it's something that I'm sure he'll be searching how his role within that as king, and it's all part of his process of how he adopts when people might suggest that he's not the most how's the best way to describe it?
Well, I've
His
heard that
faith is
he was not as curious as his father was and as emotionally invested. But I will say, Katie Nichols specifically told me that both William and Catherine have pursued spirituality, have pursued something bigger in the devastation of her cancer diagnosis, that he had a lot of questions and that he has sought answers through the book. And so I think that to see them at church, it's uplifting for me, because there was that question for years over whether he was as committed to faith as his father was.
and
And
just like with this,
the queen is such, I mean,
oh,
Queen Elizabeth. I
you
mean,
you couldn't question her faith was her driving force and her sense of service to the understanding the bigger picture, you know, that was her role. I think just like as I said with Catherine, that she is assessed. For William, it probably has brought it into focus too, because he's got his father and his wife both going through this. So then you can't get away from it. So then you do, and inevitably we'll be talking about the bigger picture. And then to see in his case, it does require where does his role within his future position as king, will his faith manifest itself going ahead? So lots of questions and deep questions for him to resolve, which, we how we see it work out, we know not.
yeah. I mean,
And
but I
but
think I really admire him and I trust him in that direction. I had somebody ask me recently if I'd noticed an increase in criticism towards Prince William in the last few weeks. I have.
um,
There was an
I think
entire there's an entire episode of a competing show that tore into him and people were angry about it. Well, do you have an opinion
well,
there? What's going on?
last week didn't we talk about the VJ parade? That he's got to be careful of his PR, and yes, lots of families go through dealing with illness, but you probably still have the show has to go on, and I think that is some of the issues. Forget the moving into Forest Lodge and everything. That's perfectly normal. He's upscaling. Um,
His children are
and
going to
I
be teenagers.
yeah, oh, teenage. So let's get on, and we know that then people have been moved out of the cottage because that's for security reasons, because it may have some vulnerabilities in that area. So, and by all accounts, that's all been managed within. May have been surprised, but at the same time, it's been managed. So that I don't even. That's not even a discussion point. What is a discussion point is that the king does need support.
Yeah.
And, his holidays had 8 weeks. You know, Lots of people are juggling summer holidays, working parents. How do we flip and flop? We still got to go out to work and we're earning. So I think there are some areas where he's just got to think, right, it's about being seen. The Queen always said, you've got to be seen. So it's all right. You may be planning how to help out with the homeless and doing lots of stuff behind the scenes, but in a way, driving to church, well, they're on their holidays. What we need to see him is back out on the road again and to just keep any fires doused that may be out there. I am sure his heart's in the right place, but you always got to be aware that you're not always going to get a free pass.
Well, my argument
And
to you last week was that I felt like the king was trying to the king was working strategically on his legacy. There's a clock ticking and it's unrelated to his
yeah,
cancer and it's related to the fact that he became a monarch so later in life. And so that he's got that working against him. And an article was published by Robert Hardman over the weekend that led me to believe that a little bit more, that one of the reasons that the palace was so appalled by Prince Harry's BBC interview is because the king's team has a very strict strategy in place for how they don't want him to be seen as a weak man. They want him to be the face in the in the mix.
oh,
And so that is why I and for Prince William and his family, he's going to be a monarch much faster than the king became a monarch. And so I do give him grace in wanting to spend this time with his children while they're small. And there's probably a bit of anxiety hovering over that family that any minute now their life could change dramatically.
I couldn't agree more. And forget just with the king, because we don't really know. Kate looks fine in those pictures, but you never know what's going on behind the scenes. You can slap on the makeup and can cover up a multitude of sins, in terms of, where is she at? So for them as a family, he's got huge things to think about, and it's the bigger picture. And so I'm sure the palace as a whole are deep in discussion. And I get your point about Harry sort of saying, I don't know how long my father's got to live, and sort of just throwing a sort of hand grenade out there. And you go, oh, goodness me. But the problem is we've spoken about it enough. He's only concerned about himself.
Yeah.
That's the problem there. So, you can nip that one and say, what's going on here. It's actually, at the moment, he has a fractured relationship with his father. He's got a fractured, well, completely severed relationship with his brother. And as a result, he never thinks before he speaks.
See you soon, Rupert. Bye.